The CEO never would have dreamed that the secretary he gave a hard time to every single day was actually the flash marriage wife his grandmother had forced on him. The very first time he dialed the phone number of the wife he had never once met, the phone on his secretary's desk suddenly started ringing. At first, he thought he had heard wrong, so he picked up the woman's phone and dialed the number again. The moment the numbers matched, he finally confirmed the truth, and in an instant, shock and regret came flooding into his heart, because from the very beginning, he had been extremely resistant to this marriage. On the wedding day, the CEO didn't even bother to show up in person, leaving the woman standing there alone while all the guests mocked and ridiculed her. Even more outrageous, he had deliberately arranged for several men to go over and humiliate her, telling her she might as well just find any random man to spend her life with. Yet he had never cared enough to understand her and had only assumed she married him for the $300,000 bride price. But what he never knew was that the woman hadn't kept a single cent for herself. The entire $300,000 had been poured into his grandmother's surgery expenses. The moment the wedding ended, the woman sprinted all the way to the hospital, begging the doctor to begin the operation as soon as possible. Right after the surgery was over, the company suddenly sent out a notice. The new CEO was coming to inspect the design department, and everyone had to be there immediately. The woman had no choice but to rush desperately back to the company. On the way, she ran into an elderly woman faking a fall to extort a man. Everyone else avoided getting involved, but she saw through it at a glance. She immediately pulled out her phone to record everything and help the man recover his money. Before leaving, she casually tossed out a remark, saying, "Next time, stop being such an easy mark." The CEO said that she was the first person bold enough to speak to him that way. The woman replied that he wasn't her boss anyway, so what did it matter what she said? What she had no idea about, however, was that the man standing right in front of her was the company's newly arrived CEO. The woman came rushing into the company, panting. Her supervisor said the new CEO was personally going to choose one person from the design department to take charge of a key project. The woman owed $300,000, so she absolutely had to seize this opportunity. But the moment the new CEO walked through the door, she froze in shock. The man she had just called an easy mark on the roadside was actually her new boss. She quickly covered her face with her hand, but when the CEO stopped in front of her, he still clearly called out her name. The woman didn't dare lower her hand, afraid he would recognize her. So she hurriedly lied that she had a breakout on her face and didn't want to scare anyone. The CEO let out a soft chuckle and said there wasn't any kind of breakout he hadn't seen before, so he wasn't afraid at all. Then he reached out and pulled her hand away. The woman forced a smile and greeted the CEO. On the spot, the CEO singled her out and made her a designer, then ordered her to come to his office later. 5 minutes later, the woman walked into the CEO's office with great reluctance. The CEO told her she had to hand him 10 complete proposal plans before work the next day, and if she failed, she could get out. This was clearly him making things difficult for her on purpose, yet the woman didn't utter a single complaint. After everyone else got off work, she stayed at her desk alone and pulled an all-nighter. As the CEO was leaving, he noticed there was still one light on in the design department. With a puzzled look, he asked why she still hadn't gotten off work so late at night. The assistant replied that she still hadn't finished the task he had assigned her. The moment he heard that, the CEO never expected this woman to be able to endure so much. Later, his assistant told him that this woman was carrying $300,000 in debt, and her grandmother was seriously ill. Yet she had never once begged anyone for help and was only desperately holding everything together on her own. Hearing this, for the first time, a strange feeling stirred in the CEO's heart. His own flash marriage wife had dared marry him without even meeting him face to face just for $300,000. One woman was trying to fill a financial hole and repay her debt by marrying someone, while the other was desperately paying off her debt through her own hard work. In the CEO's mind, the difference between the two was like heaven and earth. What he didn't know was that they were actually the same person. The next day, when her co-workers came in, the woman finally couldn't hold it in anymore and went on a rant about the CEO. Her colleague kept desperately giving her warning looks, and only then did the woman realize the CEO was standing right behind her. Even though she was full of grievances, she still had to force a smile and say good morning to him. After handing over the proposals, the CEO flipped open the first page, and his expression changed instantly. Even the assistant couldn't help sighing that this level was already close to that of a top international designer.